Here for Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, and today I'm hanging out with Jason Azevedo from RealmSmith, and we're just going to be talking about gaming, crafting, maybe painting minis. Who knows what's going to come up, and whatever question you guys have, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, we are here hanging out. And as always, you can find a bunch of links in the description if you're over on YouTube. If you're not, come over to YouTube and find those links. So how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
If I was any better, I would be twins.
That's good. It's warm here for a change here in Toronto and good old Canada. It was been freezing cold for a while now, so it warmed up to like 10 degrees Celsius. So I'm happy.
Yeah, in the northeast U.S., the weather has been just nuts. It's been up, down. You know, it doesn't know what it's going to do. The only good thing is, like, you know, we've had so much rain, and it was rain, instead of snow.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm told. I wouldn't really mind either way.
Yeah, right.
So you guys are doing RealmSmith. Tell me what's the elevator pitch? Let's start there.
The elevator pitch. I guess the concept behind RealmSmith. I mean, I can give you the backstory of how it started later, but it's the idea of giving kind of a holistic approach to the hobby. We want to be able to give people the ability to watch our tutorials on how to paint stuff and how to create content, whether it be terrain or tabletop props, and then also show how we use them in our live stream sessions as well. And my puppy is not enjoying not being the center of attention, so I'm just going to bring him on camera. But that's our pitch, is that we just believe in building worlds and helping people do that, and then showing them how to use it. So that's the elevator pitch.
So how long have you guys been at it now?
So we've been at it about a year. We started about a year ago. Actually, the reason it started was a bit of a means to an end. So we decided we wanted to create. I come from game design and app design background. Spent 15 years in the game industry, and we actually wanted to create a dungeon master tool set for creating modules and building adventures. And so we were thinking about kickstarting and thought, you know what, we really need to build a community before we do that. Obviously, that's the key to Kickstarter. And so we just started building tutorials. I had painted and built terrain for Warhammer for a very long time. And so kind of brought that over to this world and started to do that. And then it became a thing of its own. And that software is still a goal down the road potentially, but this became kind of a passion. So we've been at it for about a year.
Cool. I see you have a friend behind you.
I do. He's that's the WizKids beholder. We actually got him recently to go into our game cave and to kind of commemorate our recent collaboration with WizKids. We're going to be we just announced it last week that we're going to be partnering with them to bring pretty awesome tutorial content in the next little while. Can't say much, details to come, but definitely stay tuned.
So we had a question already, and I lost it really quick. Oh, Bard's in the basement says that does your beholder have a name? He looks like a Terran.
Terran it is. He does not. We just got him literally 2 nights ago. So Terran is the name. That is now Terran the Beholder. I like it. Thanks, Bards.
Well, you know, I think an epic monster like a beholder definitely probably needs a name. So, do you have are you going to do anything with it, or leave it as is?
I think I'm going to leave it as is. We're going to hang it to the left of where I sit at the table during our live stream, and then I'm going to underlight it. So it's going to have some secondary light sources. But I think I'm going to leave it as is. I mean, I could probably use some edge highlighting, but I'm probably just going to leave it.
I would definitely leave it, but, you know, I was a huge fan of 3rd edition when they came out with pre-painted minis.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, it'd be me, like, dipping them in a can of paint or something.
Yeah. And that's a popular method with most. And we don't frown on it, that's for sure.
Do you have a favorite kind of mini to paint?
Absolutely. So, like I said, I painted Warhammer for a long time, and it gets a little tedious. You know, you've got an army of 100 Space Marines, and so it's all about just painting en masse. But right now, I'm really enjoying the larger minis, the WizKids stuff. We just finished the Troll, I guess, in a tutorial. It was a lot of fun, and just kind of those centerpiece showcase minis. It gets a little tedious to paint some of the townsfolk and those sorts of things, but the molds on the WizKids stuff, they're not quite Warhammer quality, but they're also not the price of Games Workshop stuff. But the sculpts are pretty great. I also like the bone stuff. I find the painted here is really well. I mean, the fact that they say that they can paint basically out of the box, you don't even prime them, is actually true.
That's pretty sweet. I find it like, even though it's WizKids, it does them both. There's like a huge line. It seems like there's a huge difference between the Pathfinder line and the Wizards line. You know, I know you're working with them, so you don't have to comment on that. Which, you know, I find one seems to be much better than the other. In my opinion, the sculpts are just better done.
Interesting, and it may just be time. It may be that they're focusing on something, and the sculpts are improving, and they'll take what they learn from there onto the other.
I believe it's probably a price point thing. One company's willing to pay more for their minis than the other.
Yep, absolutely. I have noticed actually that the Pathfinder line, and I work for, working with WizKids to do stuff, and I find that their pre-painted Pathfinder, I can't remember what the box set is, but it's like their Heroes of the Realm box set is pretty awesome. The detail and the paint on those minis is crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, that's the direction I'm leaning into. I think, you know, the Pathfinder minis look a bit better.
Yeah, agreed. In some cases, yeah. Unless you buy the unpainted stuff and then you use our tutorials to paint them, and then they'll look amazing.
Do you have any favorite painters that you follow?
Oh God.
Who's the Bob Ross of minis?
It's funny because when we started our tutorials, our producer said that I used to sound like Bob Ross because I had to like change the tone of my voice of painting happy little minis. To be completely honest, I actually don't follow a lot of painters, and that sounds horrible. I watch a ton of videos, but just being an artist myself, I've kind of just built my own way of doing it. I mean, there are lots of painters out there, and people I respect, but honestly, I don't necessarily follow that world to that level, and I don't know if that sounds horrible doing what I do. But you know, it gives me a bit of a blank canvas, I guess, to kind of build my own. He is just here. I'll introduce you all to Hank.
Hank, I like it. We have not had a lot of painters on. One of the ones we did have on, like, he sent me something. He sent me a message or whatever. I'm like, I roll my eyes, whatever, because we get a lot of messages from people. And then, like, he sent some pictures. I was like, oh my God, I was like so blown away. And that was Zach Smith. We had him on. He does custom painting for that stuff, and it was amazing. I think he's even done some pieces for Matt Colville.
Honestly, there are some painters out there that blow my mind. You know, I don't think of myself as a superstar painter. I do what I need to do to get it done. But man, there are some painters out there I can't even, like, it honestly blows my mind. The level of detail is unbelievable at that scale. I just don't have the patience for it, to be honest with you. I want to get stuff painted and on the table. I mean, maybe if I were, you know, competing, but I'm not. So
yeah, you know, there's definitely something to be said for that as well. Is, you know, functionality and getting things done. I mean, my father was a jeweler for a lot of years, and, you know, one of the things that his employers liked was the fact that he was an artist, but he was also a mechanic. So like, he knew it had to be done, not what he wanted to do.
Totally, and you get into that, especially when we're building tutorials, right? Like, I mean, I still have the passion for it, but at the same time, there's work that needs to be done, and so you need to manage that time and kind of pick your wins. And from my perspective, we always talk about in our tutorials that we try and paint stuff so that it's table ready. Most people are only seeing minis at a foot to 2 feet away at any given time, and so all of that extra detail into minis that you're using as background isn't really all that necessary. So that's what we try to teach.
Well, I mean, that makes a good point too. Like, if you're just playing the game and you want minis to throw out, like, you know, chances are fairly good it's going to be missed on your players anyway. I find like almost anything you do in your game where you go extra over the top, a lot of times they're like, yeah, whatever. Let's go talk. Let's go talk to the blacksmith.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a perfectionist, right? So I know that if I go overboard, it'll be over. I need to just rein myself in on a regular basis.
Now, For someone who's not familiar with your channel, can you kind of take them through the kind of stuff you work on? Is it terrain? Is it minis?
Yeah. So it's all of the above actually. So we provide pre-recorded tutorials, which are 10 to 15 minutes long, and those typically we've done a lot of terrain stuff. Our biggest video and most successful video, most popular video, has been our DM screen. So it wasn't even kind of terrain related. We created a custom DM screen that's like a book, like a tome, and then it folds out into a screen, and people love that. And so that was kind of our most popular. So I guess that falls into the game aid sort of world. We do terrain. We also do a lot of mini painting. We started that just recently, and then that's kind of what got us on WizKid's radar. And then we'll be pushing that a lot more moving forward as well. And then we have our live streams. And so then our live streams are every other Monday at 7 p.m., where me and my guys sit around in our game cave in my garage, which doesn't look like a garage, but it is. And we play D&D with the stuff that we've crafted. So it's kind of a cool, end-to-end sort of experience.
Yeah, the making, the painting, the playing. Yeah. How often are you guys gaming?
Every other week right now. We're looking to go to every week, hopefully, but right now it's every other week, twice a month.
I get a little lost in the comments there of gaming. Now all I can think about is the Deadpool trailer where he's posing as Bob Ross.
Yeah, right. That's great.
I usually a player or a GM?
I DM. Yeah. I haven't played since junior high, I want to say. I mean, I like to think that I play every time I DM, but yeah, I do love DMing, so that's kind of where I stick and where I'd love to play, but I just haven't had the opportunity to.
So a lot of groups are like that, where you got like the one guy. Eventually, I feel like you just gotta knuckle down and be like, nah, you're one of you guys. You find your most likely suspect at the table. Like, it's time.
Absolutely, and that will happen. I mean, our game group is fairly new. There's some players that have never played before at the table, so it's a lot of fun. But really great guys and funny guys too. Actually, I saw Dave, who plays Balabar in our stream in the chat here as well. He's one of our guys. But we have a heck of a lot of fun, and it also helps. We spent a lot of time on our game cave. I don't know if you've seen it, David, but that really adds. We're really about full immersion or as much as possible. So
yeah. Sometimes you just got to be like, and that's how I kind of got Ted GMing. I was just kind of like, you now arise, or but one of the things that kept our group going for the longest time is just like, well, I really want to play. And if that means GMing, then I guess I'm going to have to GM.
Yeah, right?
So.
Yeah. We do have some hopefuls. I do have some people at the table. Brandon, who plays Vor, actually DMs. He actually created a, like the last Airbender version of D&D. He's kind of ported it over, and he runs a campaign at home in that world, which is really cool. So I'll probably have him DM for sure.
Which that's definitely really cool. Now, we may have lost the stream on YouTube for whatever reason, because it doesn't like something all of a sudden, which has been streaming the whole time. So, yeah. But if you guys are watching on Twitch or YouTube, you guys can continue watching there. I'm just going to drop in the chat right now. For the folks watching, all right, so if not, it'll be recorded and we will get it back up anyway. So,
right on.
Tech issues abound.
We had our share. I spent 9 hours last Saturday trying to go live for a live tutorial. Ended up doing it on Sunday, but man, it's the plight of our existence.
And for no reason, it just came back.
Right? Yeah.
What are you going to do? Yeah, and YouTube had made a change last week, and because we had been using encoders anyway, but we do our weekly live stream a little bit different, it was like 2 minutes of, I'm like, I can't do this the way I normally do. I have to use an encoder, and we also use a piece of software differently when we do our weekly live stream, because we use our DSL camera to do as a webcam, and we have we have software that kind of like jailbreaks it so that you can do that. And then it's like, Now how do I make all this stuff work together?
That's
So,
great. Right on.
you know, you gotta when you're YouTubing and streaming, you just gotta wear a lot of different hats, and it doesn't help being tech tarded, as Fraginator said in the chat.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't help. No, I come from a bit of a tech background, so that helped. But you're right. You gotta learn how to become a lot of different things that you may not have been your whole life when you start into this world that you didn't expect for sure. Absolutely.
And as always, guys, remember if you got questions, drop them in the chat. But put a question in front of them so we can easily pick them out. So what kind of play style you guys have? What do you guys like to do in your games?
Yeah, so we play 5e, and all our guys are about seventh, not about, they are exactly seventh level, and we play style. You know, it's pretty light. I like to keep everything in game, and so I try to keep as little table talk as possible. We're pretty immersive. Some of the guys or most of the guys talk in accents and that whole kind of sort of thing. But we do like we thought about kind of lining everybody up, kind of Critical Role style. But we just didn't want to get away from the guys around a table playing good old D&D sort of approach. Kind of intimate, and I don't know if that hurts us, but we just wanted to give that approach. Hey, just a bunch of guys sitting in a cool garage game cave playing D&D. But we're playing through Storm King's Thunder. I just unfortunately don't have the time for homebrew right now. Maybe if this kind of becomes my full-time gig, then maybe that'll be the case. But for right now, we're playing through Storm Kings.
So I see. I find it easier for me personally. Everyone's different, obviously,
Yeah.
but for me, easier. I find homebrew easier than running like something that's pre-written, and plus, like I don't write a lot of material. I jot down a couple ideas that I'm going to do for the evening, and have in my mind maybe an encounter or two. But
I'm a prep junkie. I
yeah.
can't. Like, I have a hard time. I know everybody's different, but I have a hard time just winging it. I'm actually trying to learn how to do that more because obviously, I run the risk of kind of railroading, sorry, my characters and just making sure that they're, you know what I mean? Like, I push them along my predetermined storylines. So it's definitely a balancing act there. But I find running a module helps me to prep a little quicker. And then just modify, and then just inject. I make sure that I inject character story and background from my characters into that, so that they feel like they're obviously playing in a real world rather than kind of witnessing something else happen.
I got a couple questions I'm going to pull out of the chat, and then I want to ask you some
Yeah.
questions about how you run pre-written adventures. So,
Yeah.
Vexlight, what type of blending techniques do you use for what situation and why?
Yeah. So I don't wet blend all that much, just because I find that the paints on the market actually dry quite quickly. So you could use a wet palette for that, but I just feel it's not necessary. Especially I use GW paints a lot, and starting to use a lot of Vallejo stuff, which we can talk about a little later. But I find that with their with the I guess with the expansive nature of their brand or their line, you can get really subtle highlights using their paints almost right out of the pot. So I don't do a lot of wet blending. But it really depends. It's really hard. If there's a really textured area, I might dry brush it. If not, I'll always water down my paints a little bit, and then do multiple small layers rather than doing hard layers.
So, the crafting muse wants to know, how did your group come together?
Hey, Vanessa. Okay. Good to hear from you. She's great. Check out her channel when you guys have a sec. She does some really great stuff. Vanessa, how did we come together? We're all friends. I've known all the guys for about 20 years. One of the guys, we in another life, we LARPed a little bit, believe it or not. We tried that whole world out, which was fun for the time. And that's Jeff. Dave I've known for literally 25 years, something like that. Joel I've known for another 15 years. And Brandon I just met a couple years ago. But yeah, we were buddies first, which I think comes out in our game, in our gameplay. And you can tell we always kind of poke at each other, and it's fun.
that's. I feel like there's a lot of like stories like that. Like WebDM is the same thing. Nerdarchy is the same thing. It's like these are the guys or folks you've been hanging out with and doing this stuff with, and you're like, and one of you gets this brilliant idea. You're like, hey, let's make our existence hellish and take our hobby and like cram it onto the internet a whole bunch until we hate waking up some days.
Yeah, that's kind of the approach. Yeah, absolutely.
Like the sitting down doing the thing that you like to do is awesome. Like that is great. But as well as you know, and any content creator knows, there's all this other stuff that you end up having to do that you either didn't anticipate or you just don't know how to do it. So like that stuff becomes kind of nightmarish as you develop. But I feel like if you take pride in what you're doing, you want to do everything well or to the best of your ability, so it like just pushes you to do that other stuff. And
Yeah.
every piece is its own job, and you're doing about 6 of those.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. The nice thing for our group is that our guys are super talented in their own right as well, and so I tend to be a bit of a control freak sometimes, and so I need to kind of try to let go of that and allow these guys also to flourish because they all have really great talent, whether it be web design. Our producer Joel's pretty awesome. Brandon is a great crafter himself. So anyways, there's lots of opportunities here to build our brand and kind of work together to do that. So
there's 4 of you?
There's 4 players and myself.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll rephrase. 4 players, myself and Joel, who is our producer, who's behind camera, but he actually PC'd in our last session, which we'll be streaming this week. Because we couldn't get it live, unfortunately.
And all of you collectively is RealmSmith.
Yeah. I mean, I'm company owner, but those guys, yeah, we all kind of pitch in. Yeah.
Excellent. So Kenyatta has a painting question, and that is wet palette or old PlayStation CD?
Somewhere in the middle. Have a dollar store palette. I've always wanted to try a wet palette. I've just never gotten around to it. And to be honest with you, the models are so small that I never need to keep my paint wet long enough to make it worth it, if that makes sense.
So we have Billy Badace. What would your number 1 hit for painting minis for beginners? I guess that's supposed to be tip, maybe.
Hint, maybe? Hint?
Hint, yeah.
Number 1 tip. Oh, that's a good one. That's really good. Number 1 tip. Jeez. Start with an idea of the end product in mind, if that makes sense. And so when you're base coating, it's easy to get kind of down because it just looks like a pretty piece of crap. When you're just putting down those, but just keep the end vision in mind. And also think about the color scheme before you start, because then you run into a lot of kind of dead ends if you don't.
I almost feel like that advice works for most things in life.
Yeah.
If you just start with the end in mind and figure out what it is you're really trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It helps you stay focused and on point.
Yeah, good call.
Mikal wants to know, what is your favorite character you have made and why?
Favorite character.
We could also go with painted. I'll just add that addendum.
Painted character?
Either or.
Yeah, either or. I would say favorite character. I would say every new one is my favorite. If that makes any sense. Like even with Warhammer, every time I painted a new guy, that became my new favorite. And just kind of learning how to paint and getting better and seeing that progress happen. When it comes to miniatures, you paint one and then you kind of put it aside and then you're excited about the next one. It's never like, I never look back and go, oh, I really love that guy. Unless you actually love playing with that specific a model for whatever reason. Like the Emperor's Champion, for example, in my Black Templar army in Warhammer, is my favorite kind of model just because of his lore and all of that kind of stuff. But other than that, the next one always becomes your favorite.
I can dig that. I've definitely heard other creatives say something similar, no matter what it is. It's like, whatever I'm working on now is usually what I'm excited about, kind of thing. So Lisa is the AL community manager, And also, she's either started or about to start a podcast called Behold Her, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun and really cool.
Cool.
But she's got a question. Any tips for painting stupid terrible? Why are they so tiny? Eyes.
Stupid what? Sorry, I missed that.
Stupid terrible. I think she's saying perhaps she's bad at painting, and how can you help someone that's terrible at painting?
Watch our tutorials. Honestly, like I said, the paint lines that exist right now and the techniques that are available are honestly pretty awesome for beginning painters. It's almost like painting by numbers, and it's very difficult to mess it up completely, if that makes any sense. If you just base coat, that's covering an area. If you're just dry brushing, you're just making sure it doesn't get on the rest of it. The most important thing, and this leads to kind of like the top tips, is color choice, and understanding how colors play. For a very long time, I referenced GW magazines, like White Dwarf, or tutorials, just to kind of understand the color theory and what color went with what color. Citadel has a paint app that they have where it tells you basically what colors to use for whatever color you're looking for. And so that's really important. Color theory, I think, and just kind of understanding that is probably the most valuable lesson to learn as a young painter, because then you can't really mess up. So,
I know you're getting a lot of advice too on the eyes in there, and I want to tell you that they're all giving you the wrong advice and they're doing it wrong. Right, what you do is you just get black and you paint the eyes black, and everyone is just possessed by demons.
I show actually how to paint eyes. I know eyes is that thing where people are like, either they look like anime eyes, so they're massive, or people just get frustrated with them. I have some tips in my last couple tutorials about eyes. I paint them black, and then I paint white in it, and then I paint a line of black, and then I realize that it's too big, and then I go back and I fill in the white again. There isn't an actual, hallelujah moment for eyes. I don't think anybody will see it. It's a touch and go thing. What I do suggest is that you paint the eye fairly large, and then you come back in with flesh and close it up after. That's what I tend to do.
I'm just envisioning if I tried doing it before you're done, it's going to look like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and the eyes are going to be like out to here.
All paint. Everybody in your game is really surprised.
Yeah, all the time.
That's great.
We have joked about me doing a craft channel, but it's going to be like me with hot glue guns stuck to me and cuts, and every episode ends with a visit to the ER.
That's great. Sounds like our live session. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so we considered it briefly. Then I bowed on him. Like, I don't think I have the health insurance to cover this. I don't live in Canada.
Yeah, right. I've actually never, with crafting or anything, I haven't majorly cut myself yet. I've heard some pretty bad horror stories, like nipping off the top of your thumb with an X-Acto knife or something like that. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
I think you're just asking for trouble and courting it by even saying that.
Yeah, probably. I'm a dead man. I know.
You're gonna come off the stream and lose, 3 fingers.
Yeah, right. Oh man,
never tempt the fate.
Yeah, right. At least I could still DM at that point.
Cardboard Fortress says the secret to painting eyes is that you don't need to paint them.
Fair enough. They're not fun.
Fraginator says we need to make that the craft channel a Patreon goal. It'd have to be really high to afford the medical expenses, I'm thinking. I'm just not good with that fine detail. And it sucks because both my mom was an artist and my father were artistic, and I've got none of it.
Yeah.
I drew up until pre-teens and just stopped because I just never got any better.
That's funny because I'm the first of my generation kind of to have this, kind of the creative bug. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, my brother, he left Nerdarchy to go pursue his art career and doing an art channel, and he does art dolls, and he went to University of Arts for that.
Yeah.
And so he was one of the ones that asked me, he's like, why did you? Cause I guess I might have influenced him because I used to draw a lot when I was younger, and then I stopped. He's like, why did you stop drawing? I was like, because I never got any better. I hit a certain point, and it always looked like I drew like a 10-year-old. So, but I was 15.
I come from. I actually started my career in comic books and toy design, and I worked at a studio with an incredible artist. His name's Ken Lashley. He's from Toronto. He's drawing. He was just drawing X-Men. He drew Black Panther for a while. Super amazing. We designed G.I. Joe figures for like 4 years in the studio, and you just you can't learn talent. I mean, you can learn skills and abilities, but we'd have people come in from art school, who believed believed that they would learn how to become artistic in art school. Drew bowls of fruit for 4 years, then came out and came to the studio and said, "Hey, I'd love to join the studio." And we're like, "Well, you're not good enough yet, but if you want to apprentice," and like, "Sorry, I got to go work at Walmart or whatever to pay my student loan," or whatever the case may be. And nothing wrong with people who work at Walmart. That's important and good. But what I'm saying is, you can't learn that. That's innate in a lot of ways. But anybody can learn the skills to paint miniatures because there is a science to it and there are steps to it. But that next level of artistry and talent isn't learned.
Well, not only that too. Like when you're talking about painting minis, you're talking about a hobby and doing it for fun. Like you don't have to be good at something to enjoy it and get enjoyment from it.
And you don't have to be gifted in order to get the result that you need.
Like in my case, I found other creative outlets that I enjoyed more, that I got more out of. So there was no reason for me to continue pursuing something that I didn't have very much talent for. But like when new artists would ask my brother for advice about going to school and stuff, he was kind of like, "Well, just go to a community college and save your money." Yep. And because it was along the same vein, it's like you're either good or you're not. You're gonna learn things to make you better, but
and find a studio out there that you can apprentice at. Like spend your time instead of spending your money in school potentially. Spend your money. I mean, listen. If I have a doctor and he's going to perform brain surgery, I absolutely wanted him to have gone to school for as long as he possibly could have.
Not Voki. Yeah. Please don't go to vocational for that one.
Right. There are certain skills that obviously need to be learned for certain vocations. But when it comes to art, because it's subjective, because it's talent based, I would suggest that those artists go out and they learn from the pros and the people who are actually doing it. Professionally, for sure.
So, Vexlight, what do you think of Mini Wargamer J and Dr. Foss Painting Clinic?
They're pretty great. Dr. Foss is pretty awesome. He does some really great work. He's been doing it for a very long time. Has a massive community for a reason. Yeah, awesome. They're great.
Geekin' Undies also has a question. And then Cardboard Fortress, gifted by who? Cardboard Fortress is actually a friend of our Placeable Game. Gifted by who? God, the Archene, what nonsense. Everyone can get better, but I don't care what you say. Genetics is a real thing, and some people just have more aptitude at doing stuff.
Yeah, certain things, absolutely.
Geekin' Undies. Do you have any pro tips on modifying miniatures, like, say, switching gear out or changing poses? Without saying ruining said mini, I am asking for a friend. Yeah.
So I did a lot. I don't do that as much with my D&D minis just because they come exactly how you need them. That happens a lot in the Warhammer world. And you're always trying to repose them or add. Of course, they come with all the little pieces that you put on them, right? So the only thing I would say is, again, plan with an end goal in mind. Don't start cutting off arms and then realize later that it was actually something else that you wanted to do. You want to absolutely have a plan in mind. Green stuff is great, both the liquid stuff and the moldable stuff that Citadel and other companies offers as well for filling those gaps. And make sure, for sure, that you strengthen that joint. If you're pulling an arm off or pulling an appendage off that's a little heavier on a larger model, it will fall off. And so make sure that you pin it. Typically what I use is a pin vise, drill a little hole, and then put a paper clip in between, and then glue it all together to make sure that it's solid.
Let's see. Adam is asking what's the website for RealmSmith and DungeonScribe. They're in the description. For sure. You can click on the link in the description. It should take you right there. Occasionally those links get broken somehow, but it should be good.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
So
On social media, we're slash RealmSmith TV, and on YouTube, we're just slash RealmSmith.
yeah, so you can find those links in the description, or a quick Google search will bring them up for sure. So, what does prep look like for you for modules? I said I was going to get back to this.
Yeah, sure. Um, so everyone has a different way of doing it, and I'm always amazed by learning from other approaches. I have a hard time with memory in general, and I don't know if it's my ADHD or what it is, but I have a hard time remembering, especially working from a pre-printed module. And so I actually rewrite, and this is crazy, I rewrite the module for myself. And so I take what's in Storm King's Thunder, and I cut and paste it into pages on my Mac, and I literally edit it and reformat it the way that I want it to play. And so that's a large part of my prep, is actually taking the content that I want and then rewriting it in my own words and making it a real. A lot of that prep is also terrain building and papercraft building and painting minis, because our game is very, I guess, tactile. We have a lot of sets. I think last session we had 3 or 4 sets that we switched out with minis and buildings and all that kind of stuff. I tend to go a little nuts. But that's kind of it. And then making sure day of that I read everything that I wrote over the last 2 weeks, to kind of keep fresh, so that I know when we get into that it feels natural and I'm not just basically reading off a page.
Well, that is, I feel like for like the pre-written stuff, that's a huge asset, is being able to paraphrase and not just read what's there.
Yeah, it should feel innate. It should feel like, again, this is a living, breathing world and not a play, right?
All right, guys, I'm going to put the website link in the description for you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Or in the comments for you, so you can find it easier. But it is definitely there. Yeah, I guess my hang up with the pre-written stuff is I feel like I have to read the whole thing at least once or twice, and then and then I would want to read the sections beforehand. After, like, I could have probably, like, I feel like all the work I would do in the prepping, I probably would have just ran a couple of sessions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, I've run into a couple of situations because don't have a lot of time, and I have a hard time with just keeping my attention on stuff. So for me to read a whole module front to back without running it is tough for me. So I don't think I've actually read. And sorry for my players who are in the chat right now, but I don't think I've actually read Storm King's Thunder from front to back fully at any point. And I've actually killed off some people that are actually somewhat important to the plot later, but I just figure it out. Like, the most important thing when running a pre-printed module, like Storm King's Thunder or Horde of the Dragon Queen or something like that, is that you make it your own. Take it as a guide, use it. I mean, WotC's the first person to say that. The first thing they'll say is, this is just a guide. Even the rules, this is just a world that you play in, but it's your world. Do with it what you will.
No, absolutely, and that's how it should be. And that's like one of my hang-ups anyways, because I would want to, like, change things and customize. And one of my players, she ran Horde of the Dragon Queen several times for some of the same players, so she had to, like, change everything up. It's like, that seems like so much work. Yeah. So Vex,
in the chat, people are talking about our DungeonScribe tool. I realized afterwards that the description that is in this video is actually our old description when we started a year ago, and I hadn't updated it. So I apologize, folks. There is no cool tool coming yet, but stay tuned.
In the future, it is in the future. That's not your fault. That's my fault. I tend to grab stuff from whatever media I find for people and put it in there.
I should have updated it months ago. I've been meaning
to. Vex, like, do you ever have people send in their minis or pictures of minis and critique them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people. For us crafters, the greatest, I guess, feeling that I've ever had is when somebody watched one of my videos and then built something that we showed them how to build. And then, like, hey, check this out. This is my version of whatever the case may be. I've seen our dungeon screen. I've seen some of our terrain tutorials, some of the beds that we have in our tutorials, and it's pretty awesome. And so we love to see that stuff. And oftentimes they're better than I did. And that's even better. Like, I love it. I love when people are able to take what we learned and make something incredible out of it. So absolutely, please post your stuff in our channel for sure.
So Kyle Ellis, do you feel terrain or minis need to be done better to look presentable? In my opinion, bad terrain stands out way more.
Depends on your group. I mean, for us, obviously, there's a certain level that we want to maintain for our channel. But there's no question. For me, if you have bad terrain on the table, it actually sometimes detracts from the experience rather than add to it. But I'm a perfectionist when it comes to terrain. I mean, when I played in high school and junior high, which is like the largest amount of time or the longest stretch that I played for, it was all theater of the mind. We never used minis. But it really depends on your game group and what they want, what they like. You know, I can't play Warhammer. When I'm playing Warhammer, I can't play with like jars of jam and books off the shelf. Like, I just can't do it. I'd rather just not play than play with like placeholder terrain, but that's just me.
We used to use for the longest time mini Kit Kats and build our walls and rooms out of them. And like it was like leftover from Halloween one year.
Yeah.
And we would just grab them, and we'd get a new player occasionally, and they're like, "Oh, Kit Kats, can I have that?" I'm like, "Sure, if you want it." It's like
That's
5 years old, so that was like an initiation thing.
That's great. That's awesome.
They'd bite, and you just everyone at the table would get quiet and just wait and watch, and they'd bite into it, and you just see their face.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or
That's what you gotta do, right? Like, I mean, whatever makes your experience more fun. There's no rules.
or we just grab like a bag of pencils and build things out of that. So because it just depends. Like you said, it's like whatever your play style is. Ours is mostly theater of the mind, and then like a fight breaks out, and we just kind of want placeholders to kind of like get an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, totally.
So Brian Smith wants to know any tips on making your own standees. Do you guys do anything with that, or all minis?
Where we do all minis. I've thought about doing standees, but I've spent way too much on minis over the years. Way too much. But we just use minis, which honestly, I wish I could use standees, and I wish I did more because it wouldn't limit what I can bring to the table as much. Because I'm a perfectionist, I like to kind of represent as much as I can, and I find if I don't have the minis, sometimes I can't run that encounter. That's not cool either. So, and we only usually run terrain. We don't run it for the whole game. We run it for major encounters, I find, especially combat.
So Joseph has a more of a comment for us. Wanted you to know that I've switched to Pathfinder. I can't quit Nerdarchy. You guys make me a better GM. Stay awesome. Thanks, we appreciate it, and we feel like a lot of our advice is pretty system agnostic. I mean, we talk about D&D a lot, and I mean mainly because that's what we play, and that's what a lot of the fans play. But for the most part, most of the stuff can be used in any system, and that some of it can even be used for any genre, really.
Totally.
DMing and GMing is the same no matter what, and players are pretty much you can kind of classify them into little groups, and that's going to be the same no matter what. It's what's cool about the hobby. Like, we can all meet up someplace, and we have this thing to share and talk about. It feels like home.
I mean, this kind of relates, but the number one thing that's made me a better GM is watching Critical Role. And just watching somebody else do it for that. I mean, I started in October, and I'm on episode 93, I think. But just watching somebody else do it, and then almost subconsciously getting those rules and reinforced in your mind over and over and over again is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Geek and Undies. Besides D&D and various war games, what other RPGs have you played that you're fond of?
And so I haven't had a lot of experience outside of D&D. In high school and junior high, we played a lot of D&D. Like I said, we played Ravenloft and Al-Qadim. We also played Top Secret. And David, I don't know if you remember Top Secret SI. It was great. We had so much fun playing. But since then, I just haven't had really enough time to play much else, to be honest with you, other than, of course, video games.
Top Secret is why I never trust any romantic interest in the game. It is ruining any romance in any game for me ever. They're either a counter spy or they're a succubus now because of that game. The only time I ever kissed a girl in a RPG, they were wearing knockout lipstick.
That's hilarious. Love it. That's hilarious. So
So
true.
I've
So true. And it was a nice departure, right? I mean, we used to play D&D multiple. Apparently, Hank wants some love here. Hank's just. But yeah, I mean, we just, it's a nice little departure to do something a little different than kind of your medieval fantasy once in a while.
No, I totally agree. You know, we delve into Star Wars a little bit. We play Marvel superheroes a little bit. I mean, for us, the biggest lament is not being able to play more games. I think we have a Dungeon World one shot coming up in the near future. There, Ted is going to be playing in a streamed game of Numenera on the Saber Dice channel. So it's just time. Like, you know, there's only so much time to do different things, and we know this system, so it's just easier to just play that game.
Yeah, totally.
Fergal wants to know, when you make your terrain, do you ever sculpt in 1-inch squares, or do you use a ruler for movement and range over said terrain?
Yeah, I like to stick to the grid. I find that even with a lot of the papercraft stuff that I built, what I did is I actually took like 3 months off the channel because I wanted to build en masse a lot of terrain once. I just found I didn't have the time. And so early on, I built like the whole town of Nightstone for those of you that are interested or familiar with the Storm King's Thunder campaign. But I like a grid. We don't always use it necessarily, but I typically tend to definitely craft a grid in.
And that's what we are. It just makes it easy. You can kind of like eyeball things and see things.
Yeah.
It definitely makes it easy. Brad Smith, favorite board game pieces? I'm thinking like 13 Dead End Drive or Mousetrap. That's a big gap.
Right on.
The Mousetrap love. I'm loving it.
Favorite board game pieces? You mean just in general, like in life, or that I repurposed, or what?
However you want to take it.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Dude, we still play Mousetrap with my kids. Like, we still sit around and play Mousetrap. It's just a great, fun game. I mean, there's not a lot to the game. You know, the kids almost just want to kind of like run the trap itself, but it's fun.
So Kyle wants to know, is most of your pieces done in a realistic style? If you were playing like tabletop version of anime, would you ever make more cartoony pieces since you're a perfectionist?
Totally. I'm all about theme, but I also am about usability. And so I want to make sure that if I create something, it's not a one-off. If I build a piece of terrain, or even if I paint a mini, I want to make sure that it's not too specific that I can't use it across the entire campaign. So, and that just goes for all of it.
So Fantasy Ground College wants to know what's behind you on your right. That would be a beholder.
That is a beholder. That is the WizKids Beholder Trophy that we picked up, like I said, to commemorate sort of our new collaboration with WizKids moving forward. So,
Billy Bad Ace, he's got a question for us. He wants to know when the Numenera game is supposed to start. I feel like it's supposed to start at the end of the month. Ted's involved with that. I believe it's going to be a Monday night. I don't remember exactly the time, if it's going to be one of the later games or if they managed to get the time slot down or not. Unfortunately, people have jobs, so they might have to figure that part out. And then we got Mike from Unmade Gaming streaming, running the game, so that should be a lot of fun. Let's see. Mind Milk D20. You ever dress up your puppy like a beholder and wreck stuff up?
I've seriously considered dressing him like a Tarask. It's been on my mind. It will happen, and just let him trounce across the table. He's like really antsy right now. I got him a bone, and he just wants to be involved.
There's nothing wrong with that. Occasionally, I like to have my cat sit with me, but he's an asshole, so he doesn't stay, and he starts clawing at me. And he's like, "I'm bored. Let me just wreck something like you."
Yeah, he didn't like the beholder. When we first unboxed it the other day, he was freaking right out.
You should have videoed that.
Shoulder, like, should we trust this guy?
He still doesn't trust him. Beholders are like that, though. They're hard to trust.
They're shifty.
So you guys just have the one group going? The one game going?
Yeah, right now, yeah. We had a group, actually, we were playing at lunch at work. It's hard to get a session in 45 minutes to an hour, I tell you. It's like speed D&D. But we had a group going there, but it's kind of on hold at the moment.
Yeah, that is tough. So if you were to do this full time, I don't know if that's your plan or whatnot, but would you start doing more games?
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, we've talked about doing kind of two different games in the same world, different weeks. Just the prep time that's involved is just unrealistic right now. But yeah, if I could do this full time, I would absolutely run more games and play more.
Maybe some Top Secret.
Yeah. Oh man, would I love to bring that back?
I didn't they do a new version not that long ago. I feel like they did a new version
Oh, I didn't know about that. I gotta check that out.
on Kickstarter. Yeah, and we're getting closer to the end. We still got a little bit of time left. I want to take a moment to plug one of my friends. They have a Kickstarter going on right now. Brian Stillman, Steph Pulowski, and Kelly Slagle. Eye of the Beholder, The Art of D&D documentary on Kickstarter. It's also in the link, guys. Go check it out. We're not affiliated with them anyway. They're just friends of the show, and I think what they're doing is really cool. They've got like every artist that's ever worked on D&D in that thing.
It's awesome.
They've been like flying all over the place for that.
Great.
Which the community. I mean, the things going on in the community right now are freaking crazy. Matt Colville with $1 million on his Kickstarter.
Insane.
Nothing against John Wick, but I so want him to beat John Wick's record of 1.3. I feel like the record should be held by a D&D person.
Absolutely. It's impressive. It's incredible. It just says a lot about the community.
Fantasy Grounds College. I think that one might be for me. Do you like it when your cat peels out in your lap? There's nothing great about that. My cat personally loves to use us as a springboard, and he feels like the best way to do it is to get extra traction and leverage through the use of his claws.
That's great.
He's just like, yeah, flesh is so soft and squishy and is great for my claws to dig into. So like I said, we are getting towards the end. What do you want to leave people with before we go?
Yeah, I have a bit of a pretty big announcement that I'd like to share.
Oh, absolutely.
We just, as of yesterday, finalized a collaboration with Vallejo as well. And so we already announced kind of our partnership with WizKids to bring you guys incredible content. There will be more details on that coming soon. But Vallejo has also jumped in. And so a lot of the unpainted WizKids stuff comes pre-primed with Vallejo paint. And so we'll be using Vallejo paints in our tutorials to show you guys how to paint them. So it's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting for us. That's a big one. But hopefully we'll be starting some stuff in March. So stay tuned on Facebook and YouTube for sure.
Oh, nice. So was that a brand you were already using?
I have used Vallejo paints. I actually use Vallejo a lot in my airbrush. And the dropper bottles are great for not wasting a heck of a lot of paint. And especially for airbrush, because a lot of those paints you can airbrush straight out of the pot, which is awesome. But I have used a lot of Vallejo. I'll obviously be using a hell of a lot more now, moving forward.
Geekin' Undies, besides styrofoam, do you repurpose materials to make terrain for your games using upside down soda cans painted to look like storage tanks, plastic trays, or packaging to represent a ceremonial pit? Do you have some go-tos?
It's the bane of my fiance's existence. I'll just do this quick and just show you the bins of just crap that we collect. Every box we get. I mean, I have craziness in here. I have a piece of a Barbie set that I'm going to use for Warhammer terrain. I keep everything, for sure. So yeah, that's absolutely part of the tactic.
That is something I seem to hear from a lot of crafters. Like they're just constantly looking for things and storing things.
We're hoarders with an excuse.
Ted always saves the we call them pizza tables from when you order pizza. They keep the box up.
Totally great idea.
And we've used them for tables, and we also use them for. They work great for elevation, like when you have people that are flying or higher up. And because he's got so many, you stack them, and it could be like each one is 5 feet or 10 feet or whatever. So it just kind of lets you know where they are.
Brilliant.
So, repurpose all the things.
Yeah, that's great.
Seraph Gaming. What paints would you recommend for beginners? I'm going to go out on a limb and think he's going to say Valero.
Yeah, exactly. Vallejo, GW or Vallejo paints are great. I've used GW paints for a very long time, the Citadel stuff, and they're really accessible. So I will absolutely say Games Workshop stuff is great, and the Vallejo stuff is pretty awesome as well. Either or, again, because you can get them pretty much anywhere.
Hey guys, as always, like I said, we said it numerous times. We'll say it again. The links are in the description. There's a bunch of them down there because we have the usual links we put down there, but also you can find Jason's links as well to RealmSmith. Go check out his stuff. Check out his channel. Check out his website. Follow him on social media. Become better painters and crafters, and just make cool stuff. So I want to thank you for coming on, Jason, and I want to thank everyone for hanging out with us today. It's been awesome. Until next time, stay nerdy.